Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening, and we're in August Q&A. So let's get on with it and see what everybody has asked me. I'd love more information on fall planting of ranunculus or other cool videos. Thank you. Ranunculus is a large family, so you can have bulb type forms, you can have perennial type forms. All of them prefer to be planted in the autumn. That is the best way to get the plants in. So we are talking about somewhere around about September into October, planting while the soil is still warm, and then they will carry on and grow quite well. If it is the ranunculus that I think you're talking about, which are the big gaudy headed floristry type ones, then those are better grown in containers, but again you're better off doing them in the autumn and keeping them in a greenhouse. Hi Rosie, I've taken some cuttings of osteospermum and black petunias. Will they survive in an unheated greenhouse now and also in winter, or should I just keep them indoors regardless? I would say with both of those types of plants that you really do need to have heat, so therefore through the time at the moment they can stay in an unheated greenhouse, but as soon as you're going to get into the winter months they need protection from frost, so they need to be at least elevated up to +5 degrees centigrade, if not a little bit more, which may mean bringing them inside rather than heating up a greenhouse. Rosie, we've had a newly landscaped garden last September. Agapanthus were planted, Twister and Peter Pan. They're not flowering even though they look healthy. Is there anything I can do to help me with these? Well, the thing is with agapanthus and any plants that are put into the garden, especially agapanthus, they will quite often have quite a large root run, and that then needs to spread out into the space that they've then been given within the garden, which means that in their first season they are growing, and by sounds of things you've got healthy foliage, and that is what is happening. They should then flower in their second season, but you can help by giving them a high potash feed, and something like using sulfate of potash both in now and in the spring can help to stimulate them to put on bud growth. Usually it is now during the late summer months that they are putting on those buds, and then through the winter they sit there dormant, and then in the spring they start to grow. So it is now really that you need to be feeding them. This person is just thank you very much for your kind words. People can read what you've said. First question is, Google says sanguisorba seeds need to cold stratification. I sowed some fresh Menzies seed, and from the mother plant, loads and loads of seedlings, all looking really, really good. That just shows you freshly collected seed sown straight away will grow and do really, really well. So if you're collecting your own seed, sowing it fresh, you will have much more success than if you buy seed that has been packaged, you don't know how old that seed is, and that is when that seed requires some sort of heat or cold to help it going through. Now, second question on this one is they've got veronicastrum, wondering if they wait until that has set and has good seed, does that then need stratification? What you need to look at is when is a plant setting the seed. So if it's setting the seed in the spring, it gets sown straight away. If it's setting it in the summer, it gets sown straight away. If it's set in the autumn, it will also set straight away, but think about what the weather does. Naturally, it gets cold. So therefore, yes, it will not probably germinate until the following spring, but you can leave it outside in a cold frame in trays and it will get natural stratification anyway. Can you recommend some good Nephophias that are slug resistant? Now, slugs haven't read the book that they're supposed to not eat certain plants, and you know there are books out there and people will recommend plants that won't get eaten by this and won't get eaten by that. But when it is a bad year and there's not a lot of food around, they'll try anything. But there are a couple which I could recommend which have much stronger, tougher foliage, especially Nephophia coalescens, really thick strong leaves which don't tend to get eaten, so that way they're more protected. And then the other one that seems to be really quite good is Kniphofia ruperi, and because that's a lot later flowering, there don't tend to be so many slugs and snails heading for the Kniphofia because there's lots of other food around. Hope that helps you. Right, this one is regarding the length of life expectancy of a plant, especially in relation to things which are termed as short-lived perennials. And this person wants to know whether taking divisions, root cuttings, normal cuttings, whether that resets the time of the length of the life of the plant, or whether it makes no difference. And basically, if you're going to take a cutting, you're going to take a root or a tip cutting, then yes, that basically does reset, and those plants will then carry on and be 3 or 4 years down the road. If there's something you can take from seed, then basically that's a brand new plant, and again the same happens. Divisions, it can vary because it depends on which bit of the plant you divide. If you divide and utilise just the older centre bit, then no, you're not really rejuvenating it enough. You've got to take side pieces off, and then those will last longer. I hope that helps you. This person here is wanting to know, they've got horsetail in a gravel garden, tried weed killers, doesn't really want to do it because she's worried about accidentally killing other plants, also has young children, and you know it's taking a long time to hand weed this plant, and it is a terrible plant. What can I suggest? My first thing, and I know this is very tongue-in-cheek, is move, because mare's tail is a really difficult plant to keep under control. The best thing is to remove by digging down, but the roots can go down 2 meters, and any little bit of root that you leave there can regrow. So it is quite a difficult plant to actually exterminate. But the more you go at it, the more you get rid of the top growth, the more you stop it from feeding, the more you can weaken it. However, because it has a rhizomatous root, it will just go to somewhere which is less difficult, and it will go, and by the sounds of things, it's already ended up round on your other yard. So it's moving to an area where it's not being attacked, basically, because its sense of keeping itself alive is stopping animals from eating it, so therefore it moves somewhere else and starts in a new patch. So you've just got to keep at it, I'm afraid. There's not a lot you can do. If you don't want to use chemicals, then it is remove the top, remove the roots. Don't put any of that on your compost heap. Bin it, burn it, bin it, bag it, and put it into normal waste. This one is about a lemon lace elderberry, and they're in US Zone 6B North. This is equivalent to having a London garden in the UK, and the plant has been fine, got through the first year, but now its leaves at the base are starting to turn brown and dying, wanting to know what's causing this. This sounds a little bit like stress, and the stress can be twofold. It can be the fact that the plant has either got overwatered at some stage or has got very waterlogged where it's planted, or it could be the opposite, it could be extremely dry. So have a look at both of those and see whether either digging it out because it's too wet and putting it into somewhere slightly drier, or if it's slightly dry, giving it more water, and that should then help. I have a question about ground cover plants. Got an ajuga planted near a hellebore, and it's going very close to its centre. Should I use ground cover plants to literally cover bare soil away from perennials, or will their root systems down their different heights, and will they tolerate each other? Well, they do in nature. If you look at the way things grow, ground cover goes, and they tend to go around other slightly taller plants, and they will work in harmony together. However, in a garden, you are creating a slightly different sort of situation for those plants, so it can mean that the ground cover plants are actually growing at a faster rate. So Try and assess what plants you are going to associate together so that the perennials, the bigger perennials, don't get swamped, because some of these ground cover plants have got no manners whatsoever. They're not polite. They'll just go and smother their neighbours, whereas others will be very good and just go around them. However, if you've got something in there and it's ground cover, the majority of them aren't that deep rooted, so you can edit out things by when you see them getting too close to some of the plants that you actually are wanting to grow there and be your big show-off plants, such as your hellebores, then just pull them out from around the edge of those plants and say, sorry, stop growing that way, and direct them in another direction. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel.